have come to the conclusion that it's the Big Bang theory. And I have the statement of Dr. R.B. Partridge of Princeton also. And the Big Bang is that there was a great big explosion way back yonder, billions of years. I think 10 billions of years was the last one, and that we're in for another one and probably another 10 billion years. So I don't think we need to worry about that a great deal, but it's interesting that that is the explanation that is offered today. And you will find that Great Britain is actually the one that fathered this theory. And very frankly, we haven't heard very much about the rocks that were brought back from the moon. Have you noticed that many of the scientists, and certainly that's been true here in Southern California, they just don't get worked up over those rocks brought back from the moon because they seem to disprove a theory that man had. Now, there was several years ago, Dr. Leakey. He was the son of a missionary, by the way, and he came up with the theory, for he found out yonder in Africa a skull. He calls it the Nutcracker Man. I guess that he had pretty good teeth, and that he lived there 600,000 years ago. That's according to Dr. Leakey. But we've had theories like that before, and there are a great many men today that are scientific men that don't fall for that. Now, there are other ways of explaining the origin of man, and back in Indianapolis, Dr. Lawrence S. Dillon, he's associate professor of biology at Texas A&M College, and he says man's not an animal but a plant which evolved from brown seaweed, this man declared. He says all animals are in reality a type of highly modified plant life, derived 1 billion years or so ago from a common ancestry with a brown seaweed. Now, maybe you and I have been looking in the wrong place for our grandpa and grandma. Some folk have been looking up a tree. We should be out here pulling the seaweed out, because that's grandpa and grandma. May I say to you, some of this really becomes ridiculous when you begin to put it down by the side of some other things. May I say to you that after centuries of bitter argument over how life on earth began and awe-inspiring answers emerging out of the shrewd and patient detective work in laboratories all over the world, you know, that was in Reader's Digest a long time ago, and you would think by now we'd be getting some sort of an answer or a little encouragement, but none has been forthcoming. It was the practice, according to Dr. Talmage, that the dogma which science follow is that the archaeological finds of prehistoric cultural objects must be so arranged that the cruder industries must always be dated earlier than those of a more advanced time, regardless of where they're found. And may I say to you, today it's been a little disconcerting that sometimes they find the advanced civilization underneath that which seemed to be a prehistoric time. Now, there are so many other theories that are offered today about how the earth began, and it was Dr. Klaus Mampel from Germany. He says, I don't see any more reason for seeing us, the human race, connected with apes than with canary birds or kangaroos. And may I say to you that maybe that's the direction we ought to go to look for our ancestors. Now, as you know, that even the evolutionists do not agree. They today have come up with many theories. I would like to, and I think this probably might answer the statement of a great many. You cannot put one little star in motion. You cannot shape one single forest leaf, nor fling a mountain up, nor sink an ocean. Presumptuous pygmy, large with unbelief. You cannot bring one dawn of regal splendor, nor bid the day to shadowy twilight fall, nor send the pale moon forth with radiance tender, and dare you doubt the one who has done it all? It's unfortunate that when you get down to the level of the pseudoscientists, and I'm thinking of the teachers today in our public schools that teach science, they actually are not in a position to give a fair view of it, as they were only given one viewpoint in college. But actually, there's some outstanding men that very definitely feel that it is not demonstrated. For instance, Dr. G.A. Kirkut. He's of the Department of Physiology and Biochemistry at the University of Southampton in England. And Dr. Kirkut wrote a book entitled The Implications of Evolution. I'm quoting from him now. There is a theory which states that many living animals can be observed over the course of time to undergo changes so that new species are formed. This can be called a special theory of evolution and can be demonstrated in certain cases by experiments. On the other hand, there is the theory that all of the living forms in the world have arisen from a single source, which itself came from an inorganic form. The theory can be called a general theory of evolution, and the evidence that supports it is not sufficiently strong to allow us to consider it as anything more than a working hypothesis. Now, will you listen to the statement of the Swedish botanist Herbert Nielsen? He has made this statement, and I'm quoting him now. He says, "My attempts to demonstrate evolution by experiment carried on for more than 40 years have completely failed. At least I should hardly be accused of having started from a preconceived anti-evolutionary standing point. It may be firmly maintained that it is not even possible to make a caricature out of a paleobiological facts. The fossil material is now so complete that it has been possible to construct new classes, and the lack of transitional series cannot be explained as due to the scarcity of material. Deficiencies are real. They'll never be filled. The idea of an evolution rests on pure belief." May I say to you, he's moving us in the realm of religion. And my friend, if you're an evolutionist, you have to take it by faith. And may I say, it's speculation, and it has always been that. But unfortunately, a great many have accepted it as fact. Now, there is today a group of these theologians, young theologians for the most part, and they do not want to be called intellectual obscurantists, and so they have adopted what is known as theistic evolution. Curtly Mather, in Science Ponders Religion, he makes this statement. Dr. Mather writes, "When a theologian accepts evolution as the process used by the Creator, he must be willing to go all the way with it. Not only is it an orderly process, it's a continuing one. The golden age for man, if any, is in the future, not in the past. Moreover, the creative process of evolution is not to be interrupted by any supernatural intervention. The evolution of the first living cells from previously existing non-living materials may represent a quantum jump rather than an infinitesimal step along the path of progress, but it is an entirely natural development." Now, may I say to you that it is impossible. In fact, that's almost an unreasonable tenet. It's an illogical position today to say that you're a theistic evolutionist. There are those today that are trying to run with the hare and with the hounds. They'd like to move up with the unbelievers, but they would also like to carry a Schofield Bible under their arm. And I'm afraid that it's difficult to do both. It's like that old Greek race where you put one foot on one horse and one on the other, and then you start out. And it's marvelous when the two horses keep on the same route. But believe me,